Up next on Eco Company.
Put on your hard hat. We're headed to a landfill, a no man's land for our trash.
It's designed to be here forever. Doesn't ever leave.
But there's much more here than meets the eye.
Then it's time for rubber boots. Jessica's climbing to the top of the heap, and that's not dirt.
And it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Sometimes we even see things like pizzas and chickens.
We take you inside a place that sorts our recyclables, golf bags and all.
Then, tossed out a gadget lately? Don't forget to send it to the right place. We're braving the dust to see what happens to our e-waste. Eco Company
starts now.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Adam.
And I'm Jelena. Whether it's food or just plain garbage, each of us throws away about 5 pounds of trash every day.
And most of it ends up going to landfills where we forget about it.
But Brendan met up with a guy who sees it every day.
And boy, is it piling up.
Trash. We create a lot of it. In fact, Americans throw out an average of 5 pounds a day.
Still, a lot of people don't really know where their waste goes and where it ends up, and this is where your trash ends up.
Here at the Altamont Landfill in Livermore, California, about 5,000 tons of garbage is trucked in each and every day.
Roughly about 1.5 million tons of waste comes in here every year. I personally would like to see less organics in the landfill, less recyclables in the landfill. There's a lot of materials that are commingled with other wastes that come in here that don't need to come in here.
Ken Lewis is the Director of Disposal Operations for Waste Management, the company that runs this landfill.
We're standing on a couple hundred feet of trash right now that was built up over a period of about 15 or 20 years. Overall, there's about 55 million tons of trash at this location already in place that has been placed here since the early 1980s.
We're watching dirt being put over the landfill. What's going on?
Well, after the waste is placed and compacted, we cover the landfill with a layer of dirt to seal it off from the environment.
Forever?
Yeah, that way we can capture the landfill gas that comes out of the waste and use it to make power and other things.
None of this comes out. All of this that people have thrown out is just staying here, never being used again?
Yeah, it's designed to be here forever. Doesn't ever leave.
That landfill gas he's talking about is made up partly of methane. It's a greenhouse gas that's bad for the planet if left to escape into the atmosphere, but that's not happening here.
Any landfill, when the waste is in place, will produce landfill gas, which is a flammable gas, and if properly collected and piped to a facility, it can be used to generate power. At this facility, we've been generating about 8 megawatts of power since the late 1980s, which is enough power to power about 7,000 to 10,000 homes in our communities that we serve.
They're also doing something else state-of-the-art here.
Right now, they're converting their trash into energy right behind me.
This is the largest landfill gas to liquefied natural gas production facility in the world.
Here they're turning landfill gas into fuel for vehicles.
Well, what we do in this facility is we take the landfill gas, extract it from the landfill, cool it down, clean it up, and produce liquefied natural gas that's essentially the same as what you burn in your household. After we extract the landfill gas from the landfill, we clean it up, compress it, and then send it into what we call the cold box, where it's compressed and cooled down to a liquid, and then sent off to the storage facility.
It's pretty cold. It's sent off to the storage facility. Where does it go from there?
Well, we load it into large trucks and send it to our collection companies, where we use it as a fuel in the trash trucks that you see out on the street.
So you turn garbage into fuel for garbage trucks.
Yeah, it is closing the loop and using the trash to create fuel for the trash trucks.
Full cycle.
Full cycle.
The plant produces 13,000 gallons a day of this clean burning fuel. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 30,000 tons a year. So from trucking in tons of trash into the landfill, creating a cleaner burning fuel, and producing electricity, it just goes to show.
One person's trash is another person's gold, and this is a very valuable resource to the communities they're a part of, in the sense that they can really produce a lot of power and benefit to the process.
Okay, so we can turn our trash into energy.
And you can use your food waste for energy too.
Jessica put on some rubber boots to show us how.
So what's this I'm standing on? It's a mountain of compost. You won't believe where it came from, and we're here to check it out. Welcome to Jepson Organics in Northern California, a place that's making compost for farms, and they're doing it by recycling loads of this stuff. Look closely and you'll see this isn't garbage. It's full of food.
We collect 400 tons of food scraps every day in San Francisco. Most of it comes from restaurants and coffee shops.
Robert Reed works for Jepson and NorCal Waste Systems. He's been part of this unique program from the get-go.
What can people compost? All their food scraps. All the broccoli and the cantaloupe skins and even spoiled lunch meat and steak bones through a modern, urban, curbside composting program. We want all of your food scraps, all the kitchen trimmings from the preparation of meals, all the plate scrapings because people leave a little French fries or something on their plate. We want the coffee grounds. We want the chicken bones. There's carbon and nutrients and organic matter in all those food scraps. We want to bring them all here, and we'll turn them into beautiful compost.
Why is compost so great? It protects the environment two ways. It's organic matter that helps the soil without chemicals. But what you might not know is that the organisms in compost actually trap carbon, keeping it out of the atmosphere.
We're literally managing carbon. We are sequestering carbon deep into the soil. It's the only way to do it. It's a great spot of positive environmental news in a world of a lot of environmental challenges.
So now that we know why composting is good for the planet, let's find out how these guys make it. It starts here, in restaurants like this one. They save all their food scraps from the kitchen and off our plates. After they're tossed into the compost bin, it all gets hauled here where the magic happens. What you're seeing is 24 tons of food scraps ready to be composted. First, scraps are sorted and then sent through an industrial-sized grinder. Anything that's snuck in, like plastic bags, gets the boot. Paper and cardboard are okay. After it's sorted, the material is covered up with black tarps. That's when it begins to decompose. After that, it's placed into these windrows where it gets turned by this machine.
We decompose it naturally with microbes that are normally found in the soil and in the environment, and those microbes build compost. We really just manage the microbes by keeping the organic matter in a nice pile, by watering it and turning it, this giving the microbes a good environment in which to build compost.
Soon, it's ready to go out to farms where growers need it to feed the soil.
Our ultimate goal in making compost is to both recycle materials and also have an end product for the farmer that helps their crops to be more nutritious for us.
Compost expert Bob Schaefer helps get the recipe right. So this is what the farmers use to grow crops and the food that we eat?
Yes, and this is a very excellent compost to use for growing food because this compost is loaded with the minerals that came from food because we recycle food from restaurants and waste, and it goes back to the compost, it decomposes and let those minerals come back to the crop again. So this is a very nutritious type of compost for raising food crops.
It's the future that concerns these guys the most.
If we would all simply take our organic matter from our kitchens and simply compost it in a very simple system, which you can find access to easily in most cities and towns. There are little compost programs where you can find out how to compost, and it would be most effective and beneficial for the earth and for our own health if we'd compost just a little bit, or if you can't compost yourself, take it to your neighbor or to someone in the area that can compost that material instead of it going into the dump.
The young people in this country have a great opportunity, and it's to teach adults about the importance of environmental programs like composting. Let's teach those old dogs some new tricks. It'll be better for our whole environment.
Watch out. Up next, we're on the trail of our recyclables. And you just never know what you're gonna find coming down the conveyor belt.
And later, our toxic technology. It's a graveyard for our old electronics. More Eco Company is next. Ah, the light life of a recyclable. Instead of getting buried in a landfill forever, you get tossed in the blue bin.
Sounds like a better fate to us already. And better yet, they get a second life that begins on the recycling line. Do you know what happens to your curbside garbage? It's taken to a place like this before hitting the landfill.
When you look into the pit, you're going to see the garbage from around 2 million people. It's disgusting.
Not a pretty sight, but there's a way to cut down on our waste, and that's to recycle.
Could be recycled probably 75 to 80% easily.
Rebecca Jewell is a recycling manager for waste management in San Leandro, California.
My job is to help communicate to the people who bring material to our facility how their processes work, how their material is recovered, and what the recycling process is.
All right, so check this out. They process 400 tons of recycling every day. That's 50,000 pounds an hour. That's a lot of recycling. They do it here with a state-of-the-art machine that does the sorting for us.
Single stream means for communities who've decided to put all of the recycling into one bin. That would include bottles, cans, newspapers, all your containers, all your junk mail, and leave it to us to sort it.
First, hand sorters pick through everything, looking for no-nos, like these golf clubs.
Sometimes we even see things like pizzas and chickens.
Everything that passes go heads through the recycling maze.
And then it's sorted by size. Next it's sorted by weight. Next it goes under a magnet. Next it goes underneath an optical sorting equipment, which is using lasers and high-speed cameras and air jets to blow material off of the belt into the right direction. It's a pretty intense process.
So after all the magic happens up there, all the aluminum, paper, and cans are brought down here to be bundled up and sent off to be recycled.
Say yeah!
Most communities, if they recycle, can recycle number 1 plastic, number 2 plastic, and newspapers. Number 1 plastic would be like your water bottles and your soda bottles. Number 2 plastic would be like detergent bottles and some shampoo bottles. And the newspaper is exactly what arrives on your doorstep every morning.
And Jewel says recycling all those items is exactly what we should all be doing.
And we have way too many landfills and way too little stuff that has been made out of recycled material. And we hope that you're going to help us solve that.
So you've seen the massive amounts of trash that we make, and how some of it can be recycled. Now, let's head inside for a lesson on the 4 R's.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot.
Janine Sidran runs the iRecycle Education Center for StopWaste.org in Northern California.
Each decision that we make every day has a really large impact on our waste stream.
Sidran says recycling's great, but it's not the only game in town. First, you reduce.
Think twice, 3 times, 4 times about bringing something into your house in the first place. Do you really need it?
Can't live without it? Then plan to live with it for a long time.
If you're stuck with materials, instead of just sending it straight to the landfill, how can you reuse that? Can you be reusing it creatively or practically? How can you keep those materials out of the landfill for as long as possible?
Glass bottles, recycled paper, and bags are all great ways to reuse. Now to the most famous R of them all. So it's time to recycle now. Let's talk about water bottles.
They're made out of one kind of plastic. Number 1s, number 2s, when you look at the bottom of the bottle and you see this little number made by the plastics industry, really easy to recycle. Great. And then you can turn them into other things. They won't be exactly the same thing they were in their first life. They might be a shoelace or something.
So these shoelaces are made from this?
Yeah. Water bottles, soda bottles, all made of the same type of plastics, that number 1 plastic.
Finally, there's the compost bin. That's where you toss food scraps, greasy pizza boxes, and even just paper.
We can compost at home, and we've got things like the biostack, and you can see here the different kinds of materials as they break down over time, nature's way of composting or recycling.
Compost is great for gardens, and it creates methane that's used to produce energy. So before you toss it, remember your 4 R's.
Each step in the process emits carbon dioxide, and the more we buy, the more carbon dioxide is emitted. So just by reducing what we buy, we've saved steps in that process. Everything that we use, everything that we do, has an impact on climate change.
We love technology.
But it doesn't always love us back.
And that's where these next guys come in.
They're taking care of our toxic e-waste problem. And we gotta give them a hand, because it's not what we call fun work. More Eco Company is next.
New gadgets come out every second these days.
New phones, TVs, MP3 players.
Not to mention computers and game consoles.
But you should never throw your old ones into the trash.
Jessica shows us why that's bad for the planet.
Cell phones. What will we do without them? Or technology in general? But have you ever thought about what happens to our gadgets when we're done with them? We're here to find out. It's a side to our high-tech wizardry that you've probably never seen. A graveyard of sorts for our old electronics.
E-waste, electronic waste, is defined as an electronic device that has become obsolete or at its end of life, such as computers, televisions, monitors, phones, fax, printers, almost anything you can imagine that has a power cord or an on and off button.
Erin Driscoll works for E-Recycling of California, a company that's giving our outdated gadgets new life.
Electronic waste is extremely important to recycle because it can prevent unnecessary waste from entering the landfill, first of all, or from being shipped overseas where it's improperly disposed of. And also we can reuse several of the commodities that are in these electronics, like plastic and glass and metal. We have a collection activity where we transport it to the facility. It gets inventory managed so we know at any point what's going on, where it came from, the weight of the material, and then it goes through the demanufacturing process. The demanufacturing process, we can get plastic, metal, glass, circuit boards, and wood waste.
Everything that can be recycled to become something new gets put on a truck and sent on its way.
We have a baler for all the plastic, so once it gets separated, it can come together and then go to a place that manufactures a new plastic product. And we also crush glass on site here, which is then processed into a new monitor or television.
How much of this do you get annually?
Between our two facilities, we process about 30 million pounds of waste a year.
And just think all of that could go into our landfill.
Right, and that's our goal, is to divert 100% of electronic waste from the landfill. I don't think many understand that what we're doing here with all the breakage and sending out raw commodities.
We toss between 300 and 400 million tech gadgets every year. But the Environmental Protection Agency estimates only about 14% of that is recycled. The rest ends up in landfills. And that's a big problem.
The main reason is because of the lead. The lead is toxic, it's a carcinogen, and we don't want it to end up in our ground supply, air supply, or water supply. By entering the landfills, that's what it does. By sending it here to a processing facility, we can completely divert that problem.
The biggest source of lead? These guys.
We're processing old TVs and computer monitors.
So what's the big concern with TVs?
Well, TVs and computer monitors are called cathode ray tubes, or CRTs, and they have a lot of lead. They have about 7 to 10 pounds worth of lead in that glass.
This machine helps crush the glass in the cathode ray tube. Safety goggles and protective gear required.
By properly disposing of it here via crushing and then sending out to a facility where they remanufacture the equipment, we can reuse it and not send it to the landfill.
Another big landfill no-no? Computers. So these are a lot of circuit boards here. What happens to them?
Well, this is an example of our high-grade circuit board, which comes out of a computer tower. They dismantle it here. It can actually go further into a shredder and then into a metal refinery where they can get the precious metals off of this. So there's copper, there's gold, there's silver. There's a lot of things that they can reuse again from this.
So how about these? What are these called?
Those are called ribbon cables, and they're inside of a computer tower, just similar to the circuit boards. Basically, this is 100% recycled because they can take the plastic and put it with that, as well as some of the copper wiring. They can shred that and use it for the copper inside there, and it separates it from the plastic.
So this is all like reusable again?
Everything here is 100% recyclable.
So the next time you toss out one gadget for a new one, think about what it's made of, whether it's computer circuitry, glass, wood, or plastic.
It's extremely important to dispose of your electronic waste properly because it's toxic. By not sending it to the landfill, we can reuse the products that would then just sit and not do anything.
It's reused the way recycling was intended.
Thanks for tuning in to Eco Company.
You can check out our website at eco-company.tv.
Or find us on Facebook.
We'll see you here next time on Eco Company.